Growing up, I played a lot of Call of Duty and a lot of Doom. I bought almost every installment and I loved almost all of them. Matter of fact, my favorite one was Black Ops 3 because I love the zombies mode. And while that's not quite the main shooting game, I loved Black Ops 2 specifically for its campaign. I thought it was super memorable and super exciting. I loved Doom 2016 because it was a super up-to-date version of Doom. It was a really interesting shooter and it was really exciting to play. But it's been 10 years. And in 10 years, there hasn't been very many shooters that I thought were very interesting. Especially not that deserved my time and my money. But Mouse PI for Hire is absolutely an exception to that rule. Now, one can't talk about without talking about the style. It's in a hand-drawn rubber hose animation in a black and white noir style, and it gives you a lot of options in order to customize it. See, when you open up the game, it actually lets you choose between a bunch of era-specific audio options, whether or not you feed it through vinyl or these old CD type things, or whether or not there's like a film grain on your display. Even a little bit of fuzz, which I personally didn't like much of, so I turned it off. I catered my experience to sound like an old vinyl record from the 40s, and the game absolutely lets you do that. The opportunities are absolutely endless. And whether or not you play with these filters or not, it doesn't really change the gameplay or the feel of the game, as it has a very strong styling and a very strong foundation. By far, Mouse PI's strongest suit is its story. It takes place as a detective noir murder mystery. I had quite a lot of fun with it, and it's a wonderful murder mystery that breaks out over the course of 3 total mysteries. First is the disappearance of the magnificent Steve Bandle, a magician who disappeared at the opera house, right in the middle of his show. Pretty mysterious. Next, the shrews. See, shrews, you might know them for being little mice. And well, in Mouse PI, they are little mice. And they're being discriminated against by the big politicians are a part of the big mouse party, the big evil guys that are set up throughout the game. They're kind of portrayed as sorta semi-fascist, much like how you might think of the early fascism in America during World War II, when there were some people that did believe in that in America. Crazy to think about, but just like that, in Mouse PI, the normal people of the world don't seem to like the party. And because of that, the shrews are being attacked, and we don't know where they're going. And lastly is the murder of Betty Lynch. Now, Betty Lynch is Steve Bandle's co-star, but she was mysteriously murdered, or so we think, as her death was very mysterious, hence why a private dick is needed. As you're going through the game, you might find some clues. Jack will give you a little narration, and you'll get a little story and exposition. Later on, you can find those back on your clue board, and they'll be pinned up with which mystery they're actually a part of. Very handy to keep track of where you are. And I almost found myself never forgetting the story because I could always go back to the clue board and check. Whether I forget a character, a lead, or perhaps some important event that happened, and it might not entirely be my fault all the time. I might put down the game for a while, pick up another game or something, or perhaps the game didn't put it out there the clearest for me. Regardless, I get lost, and the clue board is perfect because the entire game's story is laid out on it. And the clue board's even more important as that's how the game limits your progression. See, the map is this open space where you drive around with WASDA. And all the locations you can go to throughout the game are chained up. You don't unlock them until you found enough clues to get a lead, and that is when a mission can start. You don't even have to do the missions in any sort of order either. I found myself doing missions well before or after I was supposed to, or it felt like I needed to, yet the game didn't stop me. You can find guns throughout the different levels, and much like how you can find guns early in Doom, you can find guns early here too. If I had to best describe the gameplay of Mouse PI, I would say it's a mixture between Doom and Quake. It feels very grounded and side to side, almost like it's 2D. And it's not quite, it's not a side scroller. You can still jump, there's still movement, there's verticality up and down, you watch the sprites move a lot. But yet, it feels very flat when you're playing it. Despite that, it is alleviated by the certain power-ups that all affect movement. I don't remember a single power-up that I got in the game that wasn't movement related. So the game did a lot to try to help that problem. One thing I love about Mouse PI for Hire is its arsenal. Throughout the game, you're constantly getting fun new weapons that completely add to the experience. Whether it's the Kiss Kiss, a fun little flaming shotgun, a glue gun called the Devarnisher, which does what I imagine Varnish would do if I didn't wear gloves, or the James gun, the distant cousin of the Tommy gun. See, each weapon in Mouse PI for Hire fits a specific playstyle. The Kiss Kiss is a flaming shotgun that will help you burn and do damage over time to your bigger enemies. The James gun's gonna help you dart down the enemies from far away and burst down anyone who's gonna take a fair few shots. And the basic shotgun's gonna be wonderful for taking out those tankier enemies. The arsenal can constantly be flipped through as there isn't much of a cooldown either, making combat really fun and antsy and really dicey, always exciting, and nothing is ever too static. See, if you're ever wanting the combat to get a little spicier, the game does something for you. And that's every couple levels, there's a unique power-up. See, in the first level where you get a power-up, the Opera House, you get a double jump from an old rat stuntman. And every single person that gives you a power-up in this game is absolutely silly. Whether they're an Indiana Jones spoof or an old stuntman who I think got trapped underneath the stage. I don't know if he can still get out. He's like really round and wise, like he gives me the vibe that he's been here for a really long time.
Gotta be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Nah, that's dumb work, Chief. The Great Wheel of Infinite Cheddar.
Or the Indiana Jones spoof that gives you the tail whip, which lets you swing around the levels, almost like a grappling hook. And both these things aren't just one little time uses that are not really adding much to gameplay. They're actually used constantly. I find myself getting to use them and have a lot of fun in the levels, whether it's swinging around the enemies or opening up new avenues to do really cool combos with my weapons. Not quite Ultra Kill, but if Ultra Kill was in black and white and a little bit more about a mystery, and not like angels and demons and stuff. Now, while I am getting a degree in music, I absolutely love music, and it doesn't make or break the video game for me, but it most certainly helps. And in this case, it's amazing. See, they themed the soundtrack after the stylings of Benny Goodman, and you really get a feel for that in the raunchy big band sounds that you hear throughout the soundtrack. And even better yet, they use dynamic instrumentation where they actually bring in certain members of the band throughout the gameplay. So if things are getting really heated, there's a lot of enemies and a lot of action, they'll actually bring in more of the instruments of the band. It's really cool, and it actually makes the gameplay really fun and exciting. Oh, and while I'm talking about the music, I can't forget the death music, which I sat for 6 whole minutes and just listened to the first time I died. It's absolute peak, and even a couple times throughout my footage, I kept finding spots where I just listened to the death music. To test your might, every so often, this game throws a boss fight at you, and for the most part, they're actually pretty fun. I enjoyed the first one with the fat lady singing, and I remember Vic Guitora in the sewers, but I will say while they were incredibly fun, and most of them very unique, some of them felt kind of useless. One that comes to mind is later on in the game in the mansion, you'll come against a sort of cultist guy. And this is almost the first time they're getting mentioned in the game, and yet there's no intrigue built really around this character besides a clue you find about surveillance. And when you fight him, he's just a standard enemy. Even more so, later on in the game, you come across a marksman type enemy that's really important to the plot at the circus. He pretty much is just a marksman. He teleports through the ground like the skinny dudes and pops up and shoots at you. Overall, the boss fights and the actual mechanics lack a lot of depth, because even the fat lady that sings that I like just charges at you like the other large enemies. So, while they are very visually striking, they do lack on the gameplay front. That being said, I did enjoy every boss fight, and they all did build off of each other. One of my favorites was in the laboratory, where you were investigating Steve Bandel's laboratory, and you find that he was trying to recreate his dead partner. And first you fight her head, then her torso, and then all of her together. And it makes for a really interesting boss fight. Yet, the other ones in the game, while they are charming like that one, do kind of fall flat. Now, all of these leads and clues for the story are gathered here at the hub. The hub is this one little city block where your office is, and here is where the pub is. Now, if you've played games like Dishonored, you might be familiar with this little drinking area style adventure, where all the people you've brought back from your previous missions come here to have chats with you and give you stories. Kind of like how Sokolov gave you missions and gave you upgrades, Tammy does the same here. See, Tammy's actually quite wonderful to talk to because she's always a shoulder you can lean on and always has wonderful things to ask like,
Hey, you ever stop and think how things would be if you hadn't tossed my stepdad into the slammer?
Easy there, kiddo. Let's pump the brakes on the existential
My
crisis.
bad, Tammy.
Now, Jack,
My bad.
I made my peace.
And Tammy's not the only character you could meet either. There's mayoral candidate Stilton, whose assassination you prevent, by the way, in a fun mission at the Opera House, where the fat lady does in fact sing, and the stuntman can in fact not fly. Stilton has a sort of interesting viewpoint on the world. He believes in good and bad, but only when it directly affects him. He almost got assassinated. It's good for his poll numbers. The shrews are going missing? Well, his constituents are worried about him, so that's why we need to get it solved. He cares about him and only him. Another person who's quite useful throughout the story is Wanda from the Mouseburg Herald. She's this fun reporter type that you think of when you think of those old vintage noir mysteries. Think like LA Noir. And see, Wanda gives you a bunch of leads, and also feels like she's hiding information, but only in the way that she is just a reporter who's looking out for herself. Then there's John, the wonderful barkeep who I had to get fish for, and Jack was not pleased.
The fish! I fought in the war, John. I watched mice shredded by shells. 2 weeks, John. 2 weeks in no man's land, living on mud, blood, and rainwater. They gassed us, John. Heavy clouds lingering over the trenches, and that sound. Oh, that sound like gas. Gas. Gas! So I know hard, John. I know hell, and I know horrible. But this... I cannot smell this, John. There ain't no coming back from this, John.
Not pleased at all. And the baseball lady. We don't like the baseball lady. And all these characters at this hub are part of the reason why I think the story is so good in this game. Even the side characters that you meet throughout are really memorable. Like Cameron Bozo. He is just some bozo that you meet in the docks, and he's kind of a sniveling mob guy, untrustworthy, seedy. And I remember him all the same, even though he had maybe, 10 minutes of screen time from what I can remember? It's the little things like that. The characters that are memorable along the way. Anything else you would want to know about the game, boss? What else would you want to know about the game?
Fuck baseball.
Now, I love this game, but if there was one thing I didn't enjoy, it was the 3 hours of playing the baseball minigame. See, throughout the game, you can collect these little baseball cards throughout the levels, and they give you little stat increases when you play the baseball card game. It's $50 at any hub or roadside stop, and it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to play each round. Now, the reason I don't like baseball is because it starts with 2 phases, the batting and the pitching. You start as a batter, and your goal as a batter is to get your little guys around the bases. The higher number you have with the little wing shoes, the faster they move. The higher the batting number, the stronger their strength is. If it's at least 3 more than the pitching number, then they hit a home run. It's a relatively straightforward game, and it's not too hard to play, but where it gets really boring is when you tie, or when you lose. Now, I'm not just being a poor sport. When you play baseball, you play as the batter first. And if you score 0 points in those rounds, you then play as the pitcher as well. Now, as the pitcher, you can't score any points. You can only stop the other guy. If you got 0 points and you got moved over to the pitcher, there's no point in playing the game anymore. Because whether or not you tie or lose baseball, you get no reward. And if you win, you get a Spike D token. Now, what is this token? The keen amongst you might have seen the Spike D vending machine in the corner of the bar. Now, with 20 tokens, you can open up the machine and get a special prize. Spoiler warning if you like mysteries, but it's a little zappy ray gun called the Demouseifier, and it's really underwhelming. To be honest, it holds like 5 bullets, you can spam it, and it feels kind of like the Gmod prop gun in the way that it just kind of dinks off the enemies. It deals massive damage, don't get me wrong, and I found myself using it in 1 or 2 missions, but it was nowhere near the worth of playing 3 hours worth of baseball. Because mind you, if you don't score at least 1 point, then it's pointless. You might as well hit escape and forfeit the match. Now, while not entirely disappointed by it, I'm not a fan of the difficulty in the game. I played on the highest difficulty, and I felt like most of the enemies just got their numbers turned up. Melee enemies were pretty much pointless, and anyone with a submachine gun could absolutely laser me down. It was kind of weird sometimes, but for the most part, it balanced out. Now, somewhere where I think the difficulty could have been improved is maybe with the typewriters. In the game, you save at these typewriter stations throughout, and maybe, what if we borrowed something from Resident Evil 1? Maybe you have to get typewriter ribbons in order to save, like add a little resource management into it. Because just with the bullet spongy enemies, specifically the marksmen and the fatter tanks, it's kind of a drain sometimes to just get constantly chunked down in combat by these like long-ranged enemies, because they're not a threat because they're hard, but only because they have a gun. And I think all of this leads me to what I think is the best thing about Mouse PI, and that it's interesting. It's not boring, and it's not the same reused Call of Duty with AI slop in it like Black Ops 7, which is incredible. And while it is incredibly silly and funny to get to play around with giant machetes that fall from the sky, I like my games to feel a little bit more human. And this game felt human through and through. And not just because every frame was hand-drawn and all the music was handwritten, but because it has soul and it exudes style. Every character I met felt like they were very thought out, interesting, and wonderful to talk to. Nothing wasted my time, and it didn't feel like there was filler. And while I didn't like baseball, and I thought the game could have been harder, I didn't get into the game because I thought it was going to be really hard. I got into it for a rootin' tootin' fondue-filled mystery. And by God, that's what I got. And if you're interested, I highly recommend this game. It was an incredibly fun mystery that got to play out with Doom-styled gameplay, all the characters were memorable, and you don't even have to touch the baseball. Because trust me, I don't know if you're going to want the reward that much. You know, and if you enjoyed this, stick around, because I got some fun other ideas, like maybe mess around with little slug cats, or maybe play some Hitman or something. I don't know, I got a lot of games I like, a lot of games I want to talk about, and perfect time to do so. I got much else to do. Hello, dude. You're so cute.